Hey everybody, it's Alex again with another Futhark Friday. We are going back into the second et, and the next rune up is on the screen, but it is Nauthiz. An easier way to kind of learn this one is a trick I was teaching my nephew these runes a few years ago, because I would write random words in runes, and he was like, "Oh, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh, I can teach you." And we were actually learning them together because I was trying to memorize how to remember the list and stuff, because it was basically relearning an entirely new alphabet. And not this kind of is like now these, so that's a kind of another way to remember it. It does mean need fire, so it's always like a now, a not, a need. So it always starts with like an N, which is what this symbol is. And it stands for, like I said, need fire, that which is necessary. Now these is still part of the second grouping, like I just said, so it is pretty sharp around the edges, but it is softer than Hagalaz is. So this one's a little easier, I think, personally, to work with. This rune is about the need fire, or the self-reliance we all need for our own lives. That burning internal desire for more, to do better. A good kind of way to remember that also is the necessity is the mother of invention. So it's just like that need that drives everyone to do more, to do better in their own lives. Now, I don't want people to think like, oh, well, I'm always going to be striving for more. I will never be complete or satisfied. I really don't think that's where this is going. I think this is just, they say like no pain, no gain. If you're not, learning or adapting or changing, you're just going to stagnate, slow down. You're not really going to go anywhere. That's why they tell you to do like crosswords and word puzzles as we get older, right? To keep your brain fresh and sharp, and so we don't stagnate, so our brain and our bodies just kind of stay on point. My other kind of point to this rune, I think, is that you're striving for the best you want and you can put into for your life. Not everyone is gonna want the same thing, right? Some people might want a house, some people might want an apartment, some people might want a condo, some people might want a mansion, some people might want to just live in one of those tiny homes, some people might want a home on wheels because they don't like being in one place for too long. Everyone's different. For people that want mansions and Lambos, I grew up in areas where people were well off, but they lived in apartments and condos, specifically either to drive really high-end cars, which in my opinion didn't make sense, but that's not me. I'm not the car person where I'd rather live in a one-bedroom room and then have like the best ultimate expensive car. I'd rather have a bigger house and whatever. Like, I've driven Hondas my whole life. Love them. I don't see any wrong with that. Or another thing I've run into a lot is people that travel either a lot for work or for pleasure, and they're gone so much that having a big house to worry about isn't really something that they would want. So that doesn't make sense for them, and they're striving for the next trip out the door. That's a totally different thing than striving to put furniture in your house and, put the kids in school and stuff. Two different needs, correct? And then this kind of leads to another thing where this rune is really about your needs over your wants. One of my favorite examples of this, that I kept hearing the song in my head while I was writing out what I wanted to say about this rune, is Dig a Little Deeper in the movie Princess and the Frog, sung by Mama Odie. And she's trying to explain to Tiana and Naveen that, hey, you're not really looking for what you're needing, you're looking for what you're wanting. And Naveen goes, what we want, what we need, it's the same thing. And she goes, no, it ain't. Like, It's not the same thing. You know, you gotta dig a little deeper inside yourself. Obviously, they had all these like metaphors, and the dance movement was them actually scooping dirt, looking like a shovel. But what they're really talking about is you gotta look inside yourself, inside your heart, your brain, soul, whatever it is you look into yourself, and see what it is that you really need at the end of the day. And humans, we're kind of bad at that, honestly, because we get distracted by shiny things. You know, jewelry, cars, bigger houses, artwork, electronics, all this stuff that at the end of the day isn't super necessary on like a level of need. You know, some people would argue that art and literature and stuff are like a need of, you know, humanity and stuff. I'm like, yes, they are, but when you're looking at needs, especially in something as basic and foundational as runes, you're looking at warmth, food, clothing, shelter. You really gotta look at the primal kind of stuff that we really, really need to not die. That's kind of where this is coming at. Excuse. And so it's just about finding your deeper self and, you know, again, that whole discoverment of what it is we are needing. And we're looking at, you know, I just mentioned heat and protection. So when you're looking at runes and you're looking at, you know, Northern Europe, Norse, Norwegian, all these like cold climates, winters were frightening. Like, they were used to them because, you know, that was your life, but they had to make sure that they were gonna survive the winter, that their animals survived the winter, that their children survived the winter, you know. So heat was something really important. And if you're looking at the symbol, which I'll insert here and other times, the symbol to me just looks like a wonky looking cross. And it's supposed to also just look like two sticks that you rub and, you know, you spark that fire, going back to that need fire, but also basically talking about the fire to cook your food and to keep warm. It's really just that kind of base. So, you know, the whole two sticks fire thing, Nauthiz is definitely associated with fire as its element. And which is funny because Hagalaz was literally hail, and the next rune is literally ice. So I just find it funny that there's something so just flame inspired right in the middle, but that's, I guess it's another balance, right? Ice and fire. Another thing that the fire is supposed to represent, especially because we're about to hit this holiday, is the bonfires for Beltane, and also the ones for Yule. So it's also about kind of like cyclical patterns, right? Because we're talking about spring and then winter feasts. So one of those things, like a lot of these runes have things to do with seasonal items. The other thing that I personally I didn't really know about Nauthiz because I haven't really worked with it one-on-one all that much, is that the rune also talks about manipulation of the weird. My best way to kind of explain this is that in witchcraft and other pagan kind of practices, the essence of all that is energy manipulation. So, you know, you're putting energy into a working, whether that's candles or herbs or crystals, or they have their own vibrations, but then you have to do your own vibration, and then that's how, you know, that message is supposed to go into the universe and connects you to the higher. Or, you know, if you're more Western traditional, prayer is something, there's different forms of prayer, I suppose, but it's not something that I personally partake in a traditional head bowed, hands together on your knees kind of thing. Again, raised Catholic, so I know about it. I just don't do that personally. If you do, that's definitely the way to talk to your higher spirits for sure. So that's the other part. Like I said, don't really work with Nauthiz that much as that. The other thing that, you know, believe in karma, don't believe in karma, I've talked about this concept in another couple videos, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure which ones at the moment. But, science. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That is a fundamental law of our personal planet. If you don't like it, that's not really up to you, unfortunately. It is how that works. So, that energy going in, coming back. Nauthiz, like I said, is a little harsh. So, good or bad, you're gonna get some kind of consequence, obviously. Because, again, it's part of the second net. And it does its best. Even though it's a harsher rune, it does do its best. I feel like most of the runes are, to an extent, kind of watching over us because they know we're kind of dumb, honestly. But it's its best to protect us from ourselves, honestly, because we do have that tendency to want what we really didn't need, or didn't really desire. So, if you want a Lambo and you're really not anywhere where a Lambo is going to be a thing, the universe is probably going to tell you to want something else at some point. And, but the good thing on our end is that if we're not totally off our rocker, we can learn through the runes from our own personal mistakes, and we're supposed to be able to learn from others' mistakes. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, that person messed up, but I wouldn't. And this rune is a lot about humility, so you might indeed succeed where someone else failed, but it wants you to kind of respect that they failed, learn why they failed, and if you are going to attempt it, to obviously not do the exact same thing, or the exact same thing will happen to you. This rune, again, being part of the second grouping, and for all the rest of these runes, I'm going to mention that it's the second grouping a lot, because that is, in my readings, been a definite more important thing than the first ones, just because the first tier kind of was like setting you up, your needs, your bases and stuff. Tier 2 is definitely like kind of more like a smack and a punch versus like a walkthrough. But I've mentioned this before in other videos, and runes have like a good side and a bad side, or some runes are the same forwards and backwards in any kind of way you flip them, so they're always positive in nature. Even though this rune is harsh, the negatives that it can represent, if you do negative readings, or I personally do read them when they come out upside down for myself and for others, the negatives for Nauthiz is things like lack of drive, toiling away for no higher purpose, just, you're in a dead-end job, or you can't move, or Rideho kind of ties into this a little bit. If y'all remember, I mentioned being stuck and unable to leave. This kind of ties into it a little bit, and I just noticed. Woohoo. So again, toiling away, wasting away at a job that, isn't promoting you to where you want to be. Like, if it's the job and you're toiling for a good reason, that's not what this rune is saying. You're toiling away for no reason other than to make your boss rich. You're just there because you need a job and you need the money, but it's not advancing you any further than that, unfortunately. Worry, guilt, unfulfilled, unrecognized needs is a big thing here. So again, you need something and you're not getting it, or providing it for yourself, or giving it to yourself. So it's just one of those things where the negative is more negative than, even though the positives can be harsh, you want the harshness because that means you have a lesson to learn, versus the negatives are just kind of like you gave up and you're just in a rut or a ditch, and you're just kind of stuck there until you can do better. But on the other side here, we're kind of wrapping up there. The rune helps you accept the unchangeable, but also what needs to be done. It's good for innovation, personal development, achieving through hard work and effort. Again, so toiling for your own betterment versus toiling because you just need a job. Two different toilings. Not to put down anyone. Anytime I've really had a job, it's the former. It's the toiling away kind of dead end kind of job. So I totally feel y'all and respect it. It's part of life sometimes, unfortunately. Hoping to fix that here soon. Now, again, need versus want, fulfillment versus unfulfillment, praiseful versus guilt, so it's all these things. Humility, again, big one in this section. Now, if you do magical workings, so like witchcraft and stuff, or just, what have you, it is used in love magic, and I will say I did sew this rune. I don't remember what other runes, but I do particularly remember this rune. I sewed it into my love sachet that I've talked about with Alara in other videos, and I did this one not because I was hoping to use it as more of a magnet attractor, but that I wanted to make sure the traits I listed and put into the sachet would look at what I needed in a partner that maybe I didn't necessarily want, but because sometimes there's things that you don't want in a partner but you really know that you need. Like if you're messy, you might need somebody that's a little bit of a clean freak just to kind of reel in your tendencies. Or if you don't really go out that much, you might need somebody that's like, hey, let's go out to dinner, your opposite kind of. Sometimes you just really need that in your partner because that's not you at the end of the day. So I think that worked out pretty good for me, honestly. It's definitely a thing where I put what I wanted and needed, and very different from anyone else, so I am glad for that. Yeah, so that kind of wraps up this video, y'all. Hopefully everyone enjoyed another walk through the woods. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and I know Beltane is soon upon us. I think it starts this weekend, actually, so if y'all celebrate, have a good one. Don't get too crazy around them bonfires, though, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!